welcome back. Cool, I hope everybody enjoyed your break, all the incredible virtual sessions, all the things in the demo hub, community hub. We are now back with a fantastic session led by Yara Montez, who she's gonna be talking about going from designer to freelancer to agency and beyond. And so with that, let's round of applause for Yara Montez.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone here and at home. I know it's a little cold, but at least it's sunny. San Francisco weather for everyone. Like Emily mentioned, I'm super excited to host a panel today with an absolute Webflow legend. So I know you all just applauded me, but I would love to hear 10x that for the CEO and founder of Flux Academy, Ran Segal. Awesome.
What's up? What's up?
Perfect. Thank you for coming out today. And by the way, we did plan our color coordination, so thank you for
color
the green.
Palette.
Yes, exactly. The color palette, exactly. Awesome. Well, I know everyone probably already is familiar with a lot of the work that you've been doing and have done, but would love to just get a quick intro about what you're building with Webflow and how it's really impacting the community.
So yeah, I guess first of all, great to see so many familiar faces. Yeah, I'm a designer. We can dive into that, how that started, how I became a freelancer. But basically, a designer, fell in love with Webflow, grew a business out of that, and now sharing the beautiful power of Webflow with the world.
With the world, yes. You're global, yes. So as our title says, we've got designer, freelancer, agency, and beyond. That part is still a bit nebulous, so we'll get back to the beyond part there. But wanted to just kind of talk about your experience and your journey through some of these, designer, freelancer, agency. What's your experience in that?
So I think I got into it, and I think like a lot of other people, just loving to create, to make something, right? So when I kind of discovered the internet, or when it just came out, I was back in high school, and I fell in love with the opportunity to just create something, right? Like a page or a website or something that wasn't even there. So I think that's how I personally fell in love into it, just by creating stuff, and whether the first tools were like things like Photoshop or like literally hand coding, but it was just like creating. And I think that just doing stuff for fun, for myself, for my family, my friends, led to first kind of like opportunities as a freelancer. Like people see you create stuff, they're like, hey, you know what? I need that. I need that logo. I need that website. And then you start kind of doing that, flowing into hey, I'm actually making money out of doing what I just did for fun. And that's kind of how I personally got into freelancing.
Okay, got it.
Now, I think a lot of people kind of like imagine jumping into a freelancing career and getting started that way, but I personally, when I got started, as I said, I was pretty young. It was like 20 years ago. I actually didn't really want to become a full-time freelancer back at the time. I was like, I got my whole life to sit at home in my underwear, not meeting people. That was 20 years before COVID. But I was like, I want to meet people. I want to learn from people. So I get out there, find a job as a designer in agencies and in startups. And that literally helped me do two things that I think were very valuable later on in my freelance career, which is number one, you get to learn from other people who are a little bit further than you as you're just starting out. And the second thing, which is very important to freelancing, is when you work within a company, you start meeting people, and you're actually, without even paying attention to it, you start building your network. So I think a lot of people have the notion of, what is networking? Oh, we go to events like this, and we meet people. But actually, if you're just working in your job and you're meeting a lot of people, you're actually creating connections. And then these people move on or do something else, and later on they remember you and they like you, like working with you. So they're like calling you, hey, can you help me out with that thing? And that also is something that helps you transition later on into a full-time freelancer. So whether a lot of people just want to jump right into freelancer, a lot of time I would say to people, I mean, if you can get started, if you have the opportunity and the privilege, I guess, of getting a job and working with other people, that's a really, really a great step.
Yeah.
Instead of just going all in from day one. And then you can kind of like, if you feel like you want to freelance, if that's the right thing for you, because I also think it's not the right thing for everybody. But if you're excited about freelancing and doing your own thing, then you can kind of phase into that and not just kind of like, I'm quitting. Where do I have clients right now? Right.
Yeah.
So when I had my transition into freelancing, so for a while I was working jobs and doing kind of like what people today might call like side hustle, working on the weekends and late night projects. And I wasn't even doing that so much for the money because I had a full-time job. So I got to actually work on projects that I was excited about and build my portfolio that way in kind of a low-risk kind of way so that when I wanted to do the shift, I already had kind of a portfolio, had kind of like past client that could recommend me to other people. And the way that I transitioned was also kind of like not just quitting. So I went and told my manager, look, I'm really interested in doing my own thing, becoming a freelancer. So instead of me just completely leaving and then like, oh, I need clients, I need to pay the rent somehow. What I actually, we came to an agreement that I would kind of like phase out. So next month I'll do 4 days a week, the following month 3 days a week, 2 days. So I kind of phased myself out. I pitched to them, hey, I can help you find a replacement and train my replacement. And that way I had more time to start building up, like finding my first client and in a kind of a low risk kind of way. So that helped me make that transition. As I said, in a little bit of more of a like a risk-free kind of way.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like you were kind of starting out in Webflow, like you said, building, creating things just for your personal projects, and then you made the leap to freelance, and now you're obviously with Flux. Do you think this has to be like a linear process, or can people kind of jump from, agency to freelance to designer and all the other places? Or
yeah, so I think there's kind of like a notion that if you're a freelancer and maybe you want to make more money, then the way to grow is to become an agency. But I think, and that's one way to go, but I also think there's, first of all, more options on the table than people realize. Number one, instead of just taking more work, you can do work that allows you to charge more. So if you solve higher value problems for clients, you can literally, raise your prices from 2x to maybe 10x. So in my example, to begin with, I was just doing the design, and then when I figured out Webflow came out and enabled me to do both design and development, that's literally overnight doubled my rate. So without hiring, because before I needed to hire a developer, now I can make more money. Later on, as I grew, I decided, okay, instead of just doing a project for my clients and then leaving to the other client and kind of leaving them, without anybody, I actually created kind of like a service or a package that allowed me to say, hey, let me work with you after I design, your brand, your website, and help you hire a designer, help you train a designer, so kind of like help you build your own internal design team. And that solves a bigger problem for a company than just, hey, here's a logo, here's a website. Now this guy is actually building us an internal team. So that allowed me to charge even more. So again, one thing that you can do instead of scaling with people is just doing projects that are worth more. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think, agency model as it is today, was just like a company that have a lot of employees, is great and fantastic and could work, but right now with the way that everybody is used to working remotely, everybody is used to collaborating remotely, it opens up a lot of kind of new models of collaboration where it's just a lot of individuals coming together as they need. So in that sense, I feel like an agency it's kind of like a branding decision, right? Because some companies would rather hire freelancers and some companies would rather hire agency. It just feels kind of big. But there is a very practical sense to building an agency, kind of like we've seen FinSuite doing, which really enables you to take on bigger projects than just like a single individual can do, and allows you to do more things. So I think there are multiple options. It doesn't necessarily need to be a linear way, kind of like if you're a freelancer and you want to make more money, the logical next step is an agency, not necessarily. But I would also encourage people to think about what it is that they are actually excited about doing, right? And how you want to spend your time. It's like, okay, everybody wants to make more money, that's obvious, but how do you want to spend your time making that money? Because once you become an agency owner, obviously you're now a manager, so you're not doing hands-on, individual contributor work, you're not doing the development, and if that's what you're passionate about, that's what you're good at, that's how you want to spend your time, then it's not necessarily the right thing for you. I discovered personally for myself that managing people, that's not how I want to spend my time. Yeah. So I encourage everybody to kind of experiment and try that out, and find out kind of like the path that's right for them. The other thing is, besides doing services, I'm one example of a person who kind of transferred from doing the work to teaching other people. As was mentioned earlier, are selling templates or developing other products. So I think designers today have a lot more opportunities in terms of how to grow, what the next step is for them.
Right.
Both in terms of how to make more money, but also in terms of like, how do I want to spend my time?
Yeah.
I also think that the entry point to this career as designer or a visual developer is a lot more broader than it used to be. Like for me, like 20 years ago, you could either be a designer or a developer. And now I feel like people are entering this space from multiple different positions. Some people just came in to learn Webflow, and maybe that's the whole thing that they want to focus on. Maybe they're not interested on doing the design. So there are more entry points, and I even had a conversation with people today where they were like, is it worth within the Webflow sphere to kind of niche down on a specific thing, like, oh, I'm going to be the person who knows how to build e-commerce on Webflow, or I'm going to be the person who knows how to build membership sites. So I think like the space has grown so much that it has so many opportunities within it for people to find their own thing.
Find their own thing. Yeah. Okay, so you touched on this a bit, and sort of people needing to find their own path. I think freelancing is such a unique role or title because you master your own craft, but then you also have to run a business. So what's your advice for people who have to basically be an expert in two fields at once?
Yeah, with freelancing, it's actually, I would say it's more than just two fields, right? It's like the core of delivering that service, which might be design or design and development, or marketing or something like that. Then you have to do your own marketing and sales and accounting, and so there are a lot of hats. And as I said earlier, it's definitely not for everybody. I think some people maybe just don't like their jobs. They're like, I'm going freelancing, but you just don't like your job. You need to get a different job. It's not necessarily you should be freelancing, because you have to love dealing with all the other stuff. Like, for example, how you talk to customers, your clients, and manage the feedback on your work and that kind of stuff. That is a crucial part of being a freelancer. And I see a lot of people who are like, but I don't like talking to people. Right? I just want to do my own thing in design. But that's a key part of what being a freelancer is. You have to, in a way, love people, because you're serving clients. You have to work with them. But my general advice to people is to just try it out in a low-risk kind of way. So either just like in a side hustle or doing a project for friends or family, just trying it out. And if you like it, raise the stakes. Rather than just go all in. I'm a freelancer.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, you also mentioned sort of the networking piece, and I want to talk about community, because obviously Webflow community is so great and well-known, legendary. And so wanting to see, just like as a freelancer, a new freelancer, what does collaboration and community look like in that space? Like, did you have, late night idea sessions with people that your mentors or things like that?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say Webflow is an amazing example or a case study of how people are, building an online community and starting. This was obviously not the case when I started out 20 years ago. Networking was going to a conference once a year in person, which is very awkward to a lot of people, me included, although, you might not feel it today, but it's pretty awkward to me, and it's kind of like draining to have these, hi, my name is Ron, all of the time, so I feel you. But I think today, with things like the community on Instagram and on Twitter. Twitter is now, I think in the Webflow community, it's just so strong, and I see people just by sharing their journey, their learning, what they're working on, making friends online. I have to say, it's like, this is the first conference I've ever been to where I got in here and I just feel like I'm meeting all of my internet friends. And I think this is really, really unique. And I don't know if Webflow orchestrated it or just naturally happened, but it's amazing that it happened. And it's one of the most, I think, open places for people who are just starting out. This community is so open, so kind of like warm and accepting that I think if I was starting out today, I'd hang out probably on Twitter or something like this and just make friends, make other Webflow friends. And I think a lot of people here shared how many opportunities they got just by doing that.
Right.
Just by, making friends online.
Yeah, I love that. Making friends online, that's great. And I guess kind of speaking of things online and networking, everyone always asks as a freelancer, like, how do you get clients? Like, what is the secret sauce? And is it, showing up to conferences like this? Is it making friends online? Is it word of mouth?
I think everybody is looking for that one trick hack. Just saying, do that.
Right.
But the beautiful thing is that it's very diverse, and what works for one person not necessarily would work for another. So there are so many people here that I've heard found clients on Twitter. Other people found them on LinkedIn, other on Instagram, other in our community of students that we have where people hire each other. So there are so many different routes, and I think kind of like what I said about freelancer, where you get to experiment. So I am a little bit against all of this advice of like, okay, if you want clients, now you post content 3 times a week, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think that might work for somebody, not necessarily for you. So I would just try out multiple things, right? I would try out going to events maybe like this. I would try out maybe making content and see where you actually enjoy creating and enjoy get energy from that thing.
Right.
Specifically for me, back when I was freelancer, it was going to events. At a certain point, I was like, and actually for me, if I'm more specific, big events kind of overwhelm me, but I'm really like a lunch person. So I would randomly email people like, hey, how about we go to lunch together and can I get you lunch? And I made a lot of connection that way, because personally, for me, again, one-on-one connection was easier and more energetic than other things. Later on, I realized that for me, making videos is easy. But I think once you try things out, you see what gives you energy versus drains energy from you. And that's probably where you should spend your time.
Yeah. Okay, so another theme I'm hearing is try. And
sure.
For someone like me, I want instant gratification and I want an answer immediately. It's like, I'm trying something new, I need to be good at it. But it sounds like you had to try a lot of things and it took time to get to where you are at now. So sort of what is your advice for just like being patient with yourself in this process?
Instant gratification is tough.
It's
tough. Because most things, it's kind of like a more high level, conversation about society, but most good things in life take time. They're hard to develop and they don't happen overnight, right? And so specifically with things like content or social media, where the reaction can be something tanks. I didn't get likes for it. Nobody cared about it. So I shouldn't probably be doing this anymore. And that's where I come back to what I said earlier, where if it's fun for you to do, like my videos, for example, didn't get reactions for a while. And I did 5 videos per week for like 3 years before anybody paid attention. And I just kept doing it because it was my creative outlet. So I did it because I enjoyed doing it.
Right.
If I would look at the metrics, I would probably like, this has not been validated. The market tells me I should stop.
Okay. That's great. So you guys trust your gut, trust your craft, really, and not get,
Look, honestly, I hate the advice of do what you love because I feel like I'd be sitting on the beach reading a book every day. But I do think that if what you're doing is not somehow aligned with what you enjoy doing, then it's going to be very hard to, because everybody has this drop of, you have to work, I'm pretty sure everybody have seen this graph of you're just starting something, so you're very excited, and then you realize how difficult it is, and then you're bummed out, and then it really takes a while until you get your confidence back. So unless you have some kind of a drive to go through after that initial, it's actually difficult.
Right.
So you're not going to make it through. So there has to be a little bit of passion in there. Okay. But I do think, and that's where the experimentation comes into play, you don't know what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good advice, just I know for the audience, but also me too, because I need to take that. So I'm just like, no, I must be good. Okay, so I know we talked a lot about designer, freelance, and a bit about agency. I kind of want to touch on beyond, because you have done, obviously, designer and freelancer work, but you are also in this space where you've kind of created your own thing. Did you have an idea about what you wanted to do beforehand? Like, I know creatives always have like 100 projects under their belt, but where did you kind of decide that you wanted to really shift and put all of your energy into Flux?
So I had no idea.
Okay.
To be honest. I had no idea. I even, in a sense, tried to kind of avoid being a teacher. I had this kind of like identity things where like, I don't want to be one of those bullshit gurus where like influencer, that sounds bad to me. So I'm just trying to move away from that. And I really, I see a lot of on the internet, like how to get rid of your clients. So but I love my clients. So I was not trying to run away from everything. But I've made, I think, I don't remember if I've shared it, but in 2018, me and Vlad went to the Epicurrence event to do a Webflow workshop over there, and that kind of ended up being the core of what turned out to be our Webflow course later on. So it was just another experiment, but when that experiment kind of took off and really exploded, I think I told myself, like, okay, the market is trying to tell you something, and it might not be what you thought, right? So I had this kind of notion of myself of I'm a designer, I need to be the best designer, I need to be the best freelancer or build my agency, and then I was like, maybe I'm a good designer, but maybe I'm really good at communicating over videos. And if that's the thing, if I can be the best at that, and also I'm not tired of doing it, as a lot of people are, making videos and then they're burning out.
Yeah.
And I'm not, so maybe I should keep doing that.
Yeah.
But that transition and kind of also letting go of my designer identity, that was actually very scary because, again, everybody knew me, all of my network, and I had a stream of clients coming my way, and I knew that if I stopped doing that, number one, I'm going to start fading away really quickly. I might lose my Webflow edge, I might lose my design edge, because I don't work with it daily as much as I have been before. So that was quite scary. And if that doesn't work out, maybe it's too late for me to go back. So it was, again, scary, but like I've said before, it was kind of like experiment that was rolled up like one step at a time. Until we got to where we are today, where I'm like doing Flux Academy full time and not doing client work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it just from a confidence standpoint? Because you took lots of leaps, and so you mentioned letting go of your designer identity and that being hard. Do you have any tips or best practices for just building confidence as a freelancer, as an agency worker, building your own thing?
I don't know. I don't know that I have confidence. I mean, I think everybody is. I think a lot of people think that if you are, let's say, ahead of the game. Let's say there's a game, okay? And the metrics can be whatever, how much money you make, how many followers you have, whatever your metric is. You think, oh, this guy is more far along in the game than I am.
Yeah.
His life must be so good, so easy.
Yeah.
He must have all of this confidence. But the truth is, I think the struggle remains the same and the confidence issue remains the same. It's just about different things, right? So you take the leap of trying, and you're scared every time, as a freelancer, every time you try to raise your rate, you're scared as hell. And you're very scared when you're raising it from 500 to whatever, 1,000. And then it's just the same when you're raising it from 10,000 to 20,000 or 100,000. So it's always the same kind of like fear. It's always the same insecurity. It's always the same. So I think there's no getting out of that game.
Yeah.
You just need to accept it. You will be insecure. It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
It will be risky.
Right.
But you just
gotta do it.
Yeah, you just gotta do it.
Gotta do it. So I guess along those lines, if someone is looking to make this jump or start using Webflow or something that is significantly different from what they're currently doing, what advice do you have in that space?
I think I think the thing following along everything that we've talked about so far is
try.
Start small.
Oh, okay.
Is what I would say. Just like start small. Like I think yesterday, I met somebody who was like, "Oh, I'm going to build my first Webflow website, and it's going to be so advanced with a large database and so forth." And it was kind of like with very big ambitions for the first project. And my advice was, how about start with a very simple one-pager, something really simple, because actually the way to build confidence is to do something and see that it works, so you can do that, and then you tried something a bit bigger. But when you look at something that is so big, it might be too daunting to even try.
Yeah.
But if it's small, then you do it. And so I don't think there's a really big shortcut. If we're for a second talking, for example, about charging for project, I don't think it's realistic, even if you're very good and very talented, to out of the gate charge whatever, $100,000 per project. Because the only way that you're going to feel confident is if you went through the steps and you saw that you delivered on 1,000, on 5,000,
Right.
on 10,000, and you got good results. That built your confidence to then get to the higher levels. And it's true with pricing. It's true with the projects that you take. So my advice would be to just start small, do something for fun.
Yeah.
It's probably better to kind of like limit the time or investment. So what can I do in a day? What can I do over a weekend? And just give it a try.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I have one last question. All right, it's pop quiz. It's not, but if I did give you a pop quiz, would you pass? On Webflow features.
That would be embarrassing. We can try.
Okay, we should do that. Okay, but the question is, what are you most excited about for freelancers now and all of the opportunities they have compared to when you first started?
Within Webflow?
Within Webflow or elsewhere, just as a whole.
I think today there were a lot of exciting things. And I think I took notes of what we need to cover to tell people who are just starting out. And I think libraries is a very important and huge opportunity for people starting out. So that's one thing I would be excited about if I was starting out.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening here and at home. Thank you, Rand, for the lovely panel. With that, we're going to pass it back over to Emily. So see you guys later.